the dates in your audit file telling things about you that maybe you don't want anybody to know. Sometimes the audit dates are not appropriate in work paper files. And when this happens, it can say a lot about the fact that we're taking a wrong audit approach. So there's a right order in performing an audit, and there's a wrong order. So what does a wrong order look like? Well, if we look at, say, in an engagement letter and it's dated September the 25th, but we started the audit on September the 1st, that's not good. We should obtain that audit engagement letter either on the 1st or before that date. In other words, before we start the audit. Also, the engagement acceptance or continuance documentation should be dated early on, that first day or two of the audit. So there are work paper dates that sometimes would tell a peer reviewer that we didn't really take the right approach. You know, another area where dates go awry is sometimes I'll look at a work paper file and I'll see, say, the risk assessment date is October the 15th, and yet the walkthroughs, the preliminary analytics and whatnot are dated November the 3rd. So we should be doing the risk assessment work like walkthroughs and preliminary analytics before we complete that risk assessment summary form. Another area that's sometimes wrong is I look at a representation letter signed by the client and say that the date of that letter is November the 10th. And then I look at the audit file and we haven't finished the audit on November the 10th. Maybe we finished the audit on November the 20th. So I look there and I see the engagement partner or maybe quality control, they did their review on November the 20th, and yet we've got a representation letter dated December the 10th before it should have been dated. So we want to look at the sequence of the work paper dates in our files to see if we're taking the right approach. So what does a right approach look like? Well, you know, and this is just an overview, but a right approach would be, okay, we're getting that engagement letter and client acceptance documentation done very early in the engagement. And then maybe next, we're starting to do the walkthroughs, we're doing preliminary analytics, we're gaining an understanding of the entity, the risk assessment procedures, and we're doing that before we do the risk assessment. So say you look at cash and receivables and inventory, the different audit areas, and you're doing those assessments on inherent risk, control risk, and your risk and material misstatement. That form should be completed after we do the risk assessment work. And again, that risk assessment work would be like walkthroughs, preliminary analytics, gaining an understanding of the entity, fraud inquiries. So we want to do all that risk assessment work before we actually complete that risk assessment form. So what's next in the audit? Well, after we do the risk assessment, then we know where there's a higher risk of material misstatement. Then we're going to plan audit procedures, what we call responses, and we're going to plan test of details or substantive analytics or test of controls for effectiveness. And all of those would appear in our audit program. So now we've created a plan. We've created audit programs to do the work. Next up, well, now we're doing the work. We're auditing cash. We're auditing accounts payable and expenses, receivables and revenues. So we're doing the detailed work based on that audit plan, And once we get done, what is next? Well, at this point and really throughout the audit, we should have somebody reviewing the work papers, but definitely at this stage, the engagement partner should be doing a pretty extensive review of the whole file, the risk assessment work, the risk assessment itself, the audit plan, and also the detail work in those transaction areas. So once that all gets done, we're getting closer to the end, and at this point we are going to create or the audit opinion, we're going to create the representation letter, we're going to write that letter to those charged with governance. So we're getting ready to finish up. Now, one other thing you often need to do is send that file to a quality control person. They're going to do that final review to make sure that everything is the way that it should be. And then once you clear those comments, you're good to go. And now we get to send the audit report off. We have a chance to release the audit report, and we're pretty close to being done. The last thing I would suggest is perform a post-audit review and simply ask your audit team, how did this go? Is there a way we can make this job more efficient next year? Is there a way that we can better comply with standards? So that post-audit review, you can do this and then write a memo of your thoughts. And there's no better time to do this post-audit review than when you're just finished, because it's fresh in your mind, all the mistakes that may have occurred in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks as you did the audit. So there's a right order to doing an audit, and if you use the right order, those work paper dates are going to reflect the flow of the engagement, and it's going to show that you did it the right way. What you want to avoid is the wrong order and those wrong dates, because if that happens, your peer reviewer is going to be looking at that file, and he or she will be able to tell whether or not you did the job the right way. So use the right order, date those work papers as you perform the work, and when you're done, you'll be in a good place. I hope these tips help, and until the next time we meet, take care. Bye now.